Have you ever wondered to yourself if a man is actually open to the idea and possibility of falling in love? Isn't it frustrating trying to figure out if he truly is emotionally available or if he's emotionally unavailable? Well, what if I told you there are real measurable signs to tell for sure if that man is open to falling in love? Which is exactly why on today's show, we're going to be discussing how to know he's open to falling in love. That way, you don't get stuck wasting your valuable time and energy on a man who was never going to choose you in the first place. For point number one, we have value. Now, in order to explain this point, I drew out for all of you beautiful people a diamond ring. So we're going to imagine here we have a diamond ring, and I want to start this by asking you a question. We have this 4-carat diamond ring here. I want each of you to tell me, what do you think the value of this diamond ring is? Just speak on what you think it's worth in your own eyes, whatever you feel the worth is, whether you feel the worth is $20, $10, $2,000, $200,000. What do you feel like a 4-carat natural diamond, okay, not the lab grown stuff that was mined through the earth? What do you think that is truly worth in your eyes? When I gave you guys this 4-carat diamond ring and I asked all of you to price it, you're all gonna place a particular value on the diamond ring based on how important or valuable a diamond ring is to you. And the value that you tie to a diamond ring will be of a bunch of different factors. Maybe your experience with rings, maybe, how shiny or nice diamonds are to you, or how unvaluable or useless and pretentious diamonds are to you. This could be a factor of your friendships. This could be a factor of your family members. It could be things that you've seen from your mother and father, right? All of these things culminate to what you're thinking of the real value of this 4-carat diamond ring is, which is why I can give you the same ring and everyone has a different value placed on that ring. So the reason that I say this is because when you start dating a man, in order to understand if he's open to the idea of love, you have to see what value he places on being in a relationship, number one, and being with a woman, number two. Because when you go out on a date, you're thinking to yourself, well, if I'm on this date, doesn't it mean that he values relationships? No, not necessarily. And if you're on a date with the man, it also doesn't mean necessarily that he values women and what women will bring to the table in terms of being in a relationship. Because sometimes you might go out on a date with a guy, and in the process of getting to know him and talking to him, he might actually be on a date with you and see marriage and see relationships and see, just having a girlfriend overall as a nuisance. Oh, you got to do this. And I've seen my other guy friends have to go through so much being in a relationship. And I've seen these horror stories of marriage and I just don't know if marriage is for me. I'm telling you, you get a guy to yap enough, they will spill their inner secrets of how they feel towards relationships and towards women. And then when you get that information, you need to be gauging, does this man see value in women and see value in relationships and see value in the maybe intangible things that a woman will bring to a relationship and how she'll bring value to that relationship or that man? Or does he not see that value? Because some men won't. And the men who are going to be open to falling in love will speak on that value that they see in having a good woman in their life. Obviously, having a bad woman, the same thing like having a bad man, will only bring you bad things. But having a good woman in his life should be something that he can speak toward and wants to attract into his life. For point number two, we have attachments. When you meet a guy, super duper important, if you're trying to gauge if a guy is emotionally available or emotionally unavailable, you have to be understanding what attachments does he have in his life. There's a very easy thing to kind of spot as a red flag, and that is, well, does he have an attachment still to his ex-girlfriend or one of his ex-girlfriends? I.e., does he still see her at work? Are they still in the same type of friend group? Do they just hang out one-on-one because they're now transitioning into being best friends? That's an attachment that definitely, if you notice is happening and you notice this guy still has feelings or some sort of connection to his ex-girlfriend, then you definitely want to be avoiding those type of men like the plague, because that guy is not going to be possibly able to be open to the idea of falling in love if he still has love and is in love with one of his ex-girlfriends. Sounds very simple in theory, but a lot of times when you come on your first couple of dates, you're assuming, I met this guy on Hinge, oh, he had a good vibe, whatever the case may be, that because we're on this date, that means he's ready to actually be in a relationship. Remember, that's not always necessarily the case. So anytime you get on a first date, you have to be asking these questions and inquiring about these things to have an understanding of, okay, not just are you on this date, but are you actually open and emotionally available to being in a relationship and falling in love with with someone. Ex-girlfriend is something to look out for. In a lesser sense, you might be thinking, well, why is the brother on here? He doesn't have a romantic relationship with his brother. Why would he be on here? See, brothers, whether we call them big bros or we can even just call them brothers from another mother, someone that he might look up to or really care about this guy's opinion. These type of attachments can also hold him back from ever being able to fall in love. Because understand this very important point. Whoever this big bro is, whoever this guy that's in his inner circle, that's always in his ear about things, if that guy, like in our last point, doesn't see the value in women and having a woman in a man's life and the value that a woman will bring to a relationship, if he's very much in the mindset that women are disposable and they're useless and they can't bring any value to a relationship, he's going to be in your man's ear all the time about that same concept and idea. It's going to make it that much harder for him to open himself up to connection or love or even just building any sort of relationship with you when this guy who's really close to him and really attached to him is constantly telling him, don't do that. You don't need that in your life. It's not going to bring you any value. You're not going to find happiness that way. And of course, he's not going to be living that life either. So the example he's going to be setting for your man is going to be the complete opposite example of what you need in order for you guys to have a successful relationship. Now, the number 3 is the scariest one. This is the scariest attachment that a man can have that will definitely lead to the downfall of any relationship. And you might be wondering, why is it the mom? And why is she the scariest, even scarier than the ex-girlfriend? Because trust me, rest assured, ex-girlfriends can be bad in terms of the things they might say or the way they might deter a man from being in a relationship. But moms are 100 times worse because you can't get rid of them and you're never gonna have the one-up of saying, I know more about you, I've known you for longer, I understand you better, I care for you more. You're never gonna be able to say any of that. If mom is of the belief that no one is good enough for her son, trust me, there will be no chance that this man will ever be able to fall in love, even if he wanted to. When mothers are determined, they will discourage, right, their son from being in a relationship. It doesn't matter how amazing you are. It doesn't matter if you're the Queen of England. If she has made up her mind that you are not good enough for him, she will convince him until she's blue in the face that he should not fall in love with you. It's a bad idea. You're not the right woman for him, all of that stuff. So the reason I say this is because when you go out on your dates, you need to be paying attention, one, his relationship with his mom by asking questions, of course. And then number 2, you need to also be gauging with these ex-girlfriends, did they struggle or thrive when it came to your mom? I had a woman that I was helping the other day, and she was essentially telling me a story about how one of the reasons her last relationship basically fell apart, she was dating a guy for 7 years, and the reason her relationship fell apart was because the mom became such an issue that she could no longer stand being in a relationship with that guy because he would never stand up to his mom about, things that she was saying towards her. You have to understand, if you're asking questions, let's say you're on a date with the guy and you're asking, okay, so what are some of the things, in terms of your mom's relationship with your ex-girlfriends? Have they been good? Have they been bad? Has it been difficult for you? And if you're starting to hear rhetoric about like, oh, my mom and my ex-girlfriend didn't really get along, or there was a lot of friction, or if you start hearing in the sense that like that was one of the main reasons that they broke up, that is one of those moms. You're dealing with a man that has one of those moms and has one of those relationships and attachments to his mom, where his mom can actually break up him and another woman, even if he likes the woman, even if he wants to be in a relationship with the woman. And so you can actually meet a man who technically is emotionally available, but because of his attachment to his mom, he becomes emotionally unavailable because she makes it impossible for him to have a successful long-term relationship. For point number 3, we're going to discuss vision, specifically his vision of the future. Okay. So I drew a crystal ball here because the crystal ball is supposed to symbolize like looking into the future. Because when you sit down with a man on these very first dates, you want to be gauging and looking into this crystal ball. What is your vision of the future? Now, the mistake that a lot of people make is asking very simple questions that most men are prepared for, I should say, like, what are you looking for? Okay, that's a common one that if you're a serial dater, you probably ask on all of your first dates. But the problem is men are prepared for that question and they know how to answer that question in a way that sounds good. Now, what's better for you to do when you go out on your dates is ask men in general, what is your vision for the future for yourself? What are some of the things you want to be doing? the places you want to go, the places you want to live. What does that vision consist of? Because in that question, you're looking into the crystal ball and then you're getting a clearer picture of what his desired future is. Now, let me explain something to you from my own personal experience with myself and with my own guy friends of the different types of ways they will express this. I have some guy friends that because their vision of their future is so self-focused on just having fun, going out, doing what they want to do, and they really don't want a relationship or are interested in a relationship, they will answer this question with answers that all pertain to themselves. Oh, I want to go to Dubai. I want to buy a Lamborghini. I want to go here. I want to try this. I want to live in Miami, whatever the case may be, right? Everything will be self-focused. The friends that I have that are guys that are really, really keen on being in a relationship, they answer that question with things about themselves, but they always implement, I want to find a good woman. I want to find a woman that we can build a good, solid relationship with each other that I can trust. She trusts me, and we have a long-lasting connection. I have friends on both ends of the spectrum. So I know firsthand that men will be capable of describing their version of the future, their vision for themselves. They will implement a good woman into that vision if they actually are looking for that. Versus the men who aren't really keen on that, it's not one of their focuses. As soon as you ask them about themselves, they will not implement a woman into that picture there. So you have to be very, very relaxed when you ask these general questions and not try to steer him in any one direction. You have to approach whenever you're inquiring about this or whenever you're on the topic of what is your vision for the future, do not say, oh, what is your vision of the future as it relates to being in a relationship with me? What is your vision of a future as it relates to having a girlfriend that looks just like me? You have to just ask the question in a vague sense and let his mind go where it goes. Naturally, the men who have that on the front of their mind, because with every human being, there will be things that are on the front of your mind and there will be things that are on the back burner. So what I mean by that is if being with a good woman as a man is on the front of your mind, meaning one of your top priorities, it'll be one of the first things you mention when you talk about your vision of the future. Whereas if being in a relationship is on the back burner, you have a lot of other stuff you want to do before you do that, it's one of the last things, if you ever even mention it, that you're going to mention because it's low on the priority list. For point number 4, we're going to discuss the career. You have to be very keen and aware. Where is that man's career when you guys are exploring a romantic relationship? Let me break this down in an example with you, and I'm going to implement this timeline so you understand what I mean. See, you might meet a guy, and let's just say for the sake of example that he is at the entry level of his job. And let's say he works as a software engineer, and he's starting off with an entry-level job as a software engineer. Now, you ask him where his career is at currently and where he wants his career to be in the future. And he tells you, yeah, I love software engineering. It's not like I'm going to ever leave the field. I just envision myself down the line being, a director or being in the C-suite, starting my own software engineering company or business. The reason I want you to pay very close attention to this, even though I know some of the things he might be explaining might be boring to you, like, Thompson, I don't care about software engineers. I don't know nothing about that life. What I want you to be paying attention to is how close or how far away is he from his desired career path, and what will be the changes required to get to that desired destination or desired outcome. Let me give you an example. See, in the engineer who wants to just get to a director or a C-suite level in his same career path, now you're understanding, okay, there isn't going to be a drastic change in his lifestyle as time goes on. Because when he becomes a manager, his life's not going to change that much. He's just going to have a little bit more responsibility. When he's a director, a little bit more responsibility. And yeah, when he's a C-suite, maybe he's running a business. Maybe he just has even that much more responsibility and more subordinates. But he's doing essentially the same thing, and he just is becoming an expert in that field. If you meet a man who his desired career path is drastically different from where he is now, this is a man who is not open to falling in love. Let me explain to you why. Let's say in this example, right, instead of having a software engineer, let's say you have a guy who wants to become a rapper, and this is his desired career path. I make rap music, and I'm telling you, I'm gonna be the next Lil Baby, I'm gonna be the next Drake, I'm gonna be the next whatever. Because this is his desired career path, he has a lot of work to do. Let's just say it like that. Instead of him working as a rapper currently, in order to pay the bills, he is a cashier. Nothing against cashiers. He works as a cashier at a random grocery store, but his desired career path, right, his end goal is not to just own a grocery store business. It's in a whole different field. Now you might be wondering, well, how does this make him open or not open to love? So you have to understand, if a man is gonna go through some drastic changes in the next couple of years, that man will be so focused on whatever it is he's doing and all the transitions and the changes that will be taking place in his life that I promise you, I'm telling you this is a man, I'm just gonna be honest with you, he will put love and a relationship on the back burner to chase that dream. And what you'll find is you end up getting neglected and left behind because all of the things and the energy that is required for him to go from cashier to successful rapper is gonna take up so much of his time and energy, he won't have any left over for you. I'm not saying you can't be with a man before he becomes rich and famous, but what I am saying is you'll be making a mistake being there before the transition period, if that makes any sense. At least if he was already being able to live off of his music and then saying, I just want to be more successful, now you're dealing with a man who isn't going to have drastic change in his life in the next year or so. As opposed to being with the man who's going from cashier to rapper, you're going to be dating basically a whole different person in 1 year. And that amount of time, effort, and energy and consistency required to even get to that point is going to be a lot. And it's going to make it very difficult for love to even be in the equation. You want a man who's pursuing something, but you just don't want him in a place where so many things are changing that you don't even know what your relationship will look like in a couple of years or a couple of months, because he's going from one place in his life to a completely different area and you literally can't even gauge what your relationship or who you'll be to him at that point. Number 5 is lifestyle. You have to come to a sobering reality whenever it comes to dating men and realizing who will even be prepared to fall in love and who things will be a lot harder to get to that point with. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Let's say you're dating a guy. His current lifestyle is that he works as a bartender at a couple of local clubs. So his weekends are basically not free because Friday, Saturday, let's say Sunday as well, and a Tuesday and a Thursday, he's working at a bartender at a local club. You might think to yourself, okay, what's necessarily wrong with that? Being a bartender in itself is not necessarily meaning that he's a bad person. But the reality of it is, it will be harder to have a successful relationship with that type of man. 1, it'll also be harder to have a man who is open to falling in love, who is in that particular lifestyle. Why? Because you have to think about, what does the lifestyle actually consist of? And is that conducive with being able to have successful relationships? So for example, the bartender who's working at a bar, he's gonna be working late nights. He's gonna have to talk to girls. He's gonna have to flirt with girls and guys for tips. If he's a bartender, or let's say if he's a club promoter, he's gonna have to be chit-chatting with them, DMing them, you know what I mean? Getting their numbers so that they wanna consistently come back to the club and spend money, right? All of these things make it that much harder to have a successful relationship. That lifestyle makes it harder to say, okay, I'm ready to fall in love now. If you're in a relationship and you're a bartender, you're gonna have to do extra work in terms of sacrificing certain things or not doing certain things or being very careful in certain areas, because it's a lot harder to have a successful relationship as a bartender than it is as someone who works a 9-to-5 corporate job, because now your schedule is off and the things that you're supposed to do for work are actually very much not in alignment with what most people would be comfortable with if they were in a relationship. It kind of ends up working against you. So you have to be asking yourself, when you meet a guy, what is his current lifestyle like? What are the things that he has to do on a day-to-day basis? What are his responsibilities? And you have to be honest with yourself. Do those responsibilities and does that lifestyle make it harder or easier to have a successful relationship? Because that's also going to tell you whether this man is actually open or not open to falling in love. Because if a guy is working till 4 a.m. and he has to flirt with girls all the time, well, now all of a sudden we have a problem. Because truthfully and honestly, he can say he's open to falling in love, but he's not really open to falling in love if he feels like being in love and being in a relationship is going to hinder his success as a bartender. It just doesn't apply to bartenders. It can be any sort of career path in which you're like, oh, that's not going to be easy for us to have a successful relationship, and you're doing that line of work. For point number 6, we're going to be discussing sacrifice. It's very important that when you start dating a guy, you get a very clear understanding of whether or not he understands the sacrifice necessary to be in a successful relationship, and the fact that he is open to sacrificing for a relationship and for the betterment and success of the relationship. The reason I say this is because if you guys are going to be in a relationship, you guys get the benefit of having each other. So there's a bonus to that. In the process of that, you're both going to have to give up some things in order to get to that point. Maybe now you guys are going to have to update each other all the time when you guys are out and about, right? You're not just going to be able to go out whenever you want. You're not just going to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want, all the time, right? There's a little bit of sacrifice in that sense. Your ability to just up and go is limited now. These are another one of the things that you're going to have to sacrifice, because you're not just going to be able to live wherever you want, or just say, I just feel like going out to some other place and be there for the next 6 months. In terms of the places you go is going to be limited. For example, if you love the strip club, you're probably going to have to sacrifice your love of the strip club as a guy, because now you have a happy, healthy relationship, and your woman probably don't want you up in the strip club with a whole bunch of strippers throwing money on them. These are some of the things that, people are going to have to sacrifice whenever they get into a relationship. It's not just going to be all about what you want all the time, but you have to make sure, hopefully you're ready for that, but also the guy that you're with is also ready for that mentally. That is a mental state. You're not going to fight it. You're not going to convince him of it. You're not here to persuade him at all. You're here to understand what is his mental state and approach to that idea. And you'll get that when you start flowing. And see, this is why observation is so important, but like doing deeper listening is also so important. Don't just listen to the words someone is saying, listen to the context of those words and listen to the deeper meaning of those words. So for example, in the process of him having a date with you and talking about his life, he's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't get this idea when women will want to be so controlling. They want to know where you're at. They want to share locations. They want to do this. They want to do that. It's like, bro, like sometimes you just want to go out with the boys. You just want to be free. Like, I don't always want to have to be checking in or telling somewhere where I'm at. Like, I just want to be able to enjoy life, not thinking about this, not on my phone, texting this and texting that. So these are the type of things. Listen to them, but listen to them on a deeper level, because being in a relationship is sacrificing some of that freedom. Not in a bad way. You're just trading in some of that freedom to have the other person. But that understanding has to be on both parties. So if he feels like, trading in my freedom to be in a relationship, disgusting. I would never sacrifice any of that. If that is his approach and that is his state of being, as it relates to relationships, that man's not going to be open to falling in love. Despite what he might say to you, that's the deeper meaning about what he's actually saying, because any real relationship worth having is going to require some sacrifice on both of your parts. So both people have to go into that relationship, if he truly is open to falling in love, with the understanding that, yes, I'm going to have to compromise some things. Yes, I'm not going to get my way all the time. Yes, sometimes I'm going to have to hear someone else's perspective, hear someone else's opinion. And even if I don't agree with them, I'm going to have to factor that into my decision making. If both people aren't ready for that, you're never going to have a successful relationship. Number 7, his friendships. I touched on this a little bit earlier when I was talking about attachments. When you are dating a guy, you do not determine whether or not he's open to falling in love until you get a very clear understanding of the lifestyle his friends are living and the rhetoric that his friends speak with and what they're all about. These guys, these BFFs of his, will tell you a lot about where his mind state is at, the value he sees in women or being in a relationship, whether that is something that would even be important to him or a priority for him. You do not want to go out with a guy, start dating him, thinking that he's open to falling in love, only to realize that all his best friends do is discourage him from being in a happy, healthy relationship because they don't see the point in it. And all of them are living a lifestyle of being single bachelors, just having fun doing their own thing. It sounds very simple in theory, but it's so hard to apply when you're on that date with that guy, because even if you learn later on that all of his friends are living the single bachelor lifestyle, you want to believe that your guy is the one guy that has just changed and evolved and is ready for something different. If his other guy friends, when you meet them and sit down with them, don't speak themselves about how they're ready for a relationship or desire that for themselves as well, then trust me, your man is most likely not going to be on that same page. When you're asking even the friends questions, when you finally meet them or sit down with them, or even when you're asking him questions about his friends, you can extract that information from them in terms of, hey, what is your friend like? What is James like? Tell me about them. What do they do for work? How do they live their lives? If you see on his face and he's talking about his friend Josh and he's like, oh, Josh, he's He's a wild boy. He takes trips to Dubai. He be out here having fun and this and that. This is where I want you to come in, step in, and be like a best friend in the sense where you say, oh, what? Josh is crazy like that? Because you want to come across as, oh, I'm not judging Josh, and I'm not making any sort of connection between what Josh does and what you do. This is where guys slip up a lot. They get so open with talking about their best friends because they love their boys, right? And they're so connected with their boys, but they make the mistake of feeling like, oh, I'm not incriminating myself if I tell you about what my boy's doing. If I tell you about how he's going out to Dubai and going out to Miami and he's smashing this girl and smashing that girl, and if I'm on FaceTime with him and you're hearing about this, you don't know the girl, so what does it matter, right? He's thinking it's not incriminating towards him. But what you should be doing is making the connection and saying, aha, none of you guys are really focused on building long-term relationships. None of you guys really even desire that for yourselves, right? At least nobody in this friend group that I've seen. So now you can have a better understanding that, oh, if he's trying to convince me of that, it's more than likely a facade, number one. And what's really happening is this guy isn't really open to relationships. This is really just like his game to get me to play along because that's probably what he thinks that I want to hear. I'm telling you this as a guy and as a man who's also helped hundreds of women, more likely than not, if his friends are all on one page, he is on that same page. The likelihood that you're gonna meet a guy who's on a drastically different page than all of his BFFs is slim to basically none. Okay, so for point number 8, we have promises. We have a pretty funny statement here for me to kind of give you guys an example of what I mean, because I hear this all the time. I actually don't drink. I quit drinking like 2.5 years ago. This is a statement whenever I meet people and I tell them I don't drink, they're always like, oh, I'm quitting next year. Oh, 2025 is the last year I'm gonna drink. Okay, I hear that all the time. Let's imagine, hypothetically, you meet a guy and he, at the beginning of your talking stage, makes the statement to you that he wants to quit drinking. That's one of the things that he's making a promise to himself he's done doing. It's ruining his life, it's ruining his friendships, his relationships, all that other stuff. And he wants to get rid of drinking in his life. Day one of no drinking, let's say he actually takes no drinks. But come day 30, there are a couple of parties here and there, and you know, it's very hard to go out and really be sober when everyone else is getting drunk and having fun. So it gets a little bit uncomfortable going out with friends that are drinking and you're not drinking. So rather than just no drinks at all, on day 30, he's just, you know, having a couple of coolers with the boys, maybe even a glass of wine, but nothing that's too crazy. He's not going crazy. He's not getting blackout. But by the time we get to day 60, now he's taking shots, and one shot leads to another shot. Now he's having mixed drinks, and just that fast, he's having beers as well. I know the guys love beers. I've never been a beer fan. By the time we get to day 60, he's basically right back to where he started on day 0 in drinking again. It's just now he's talking about, yeah, you know, I'm gonna try and drink less. So instead of me being blackout drunk, I'm just gonna get proper drunk and not be blackout. And then by the time, let's say we get to day 90, he's back to square one. Why do I say this? And why do I want you to pay attention to this? Because if a man is breaking promises with himself, rest assured he will break promises with you. Now, how does that relate to a man being open to falling in love or not? When a guy is ready and primed to fall in love, he's also primed and ready to like be reliable and be responsible to someone else outside of himself. So when you're keeping promises to yourself, you're being reliable and responsible to you. But if he can't be reliable and responsible to himself, how can he possibly have that preparation and be ready to be reliable and responsible to you? Because he's gonna have to make you promises. He's gonna have to keep those promises, and he's gonna have to be consistent with those promises as it relates to your relationship and the way that he treats you and the affection that he gives you and the consistency and energy that he puts towards you. And if he's not doing that, then he's breaking those promises. Once again, it's a mind state. It's a state of mind, a state of being that you have to be into before you can actually be primed to step into a relationship and be successful in that relationship. If a man cannot keep his promises to himself with something as simple as, hey, I want to quit drinking, or at least I just want to stop drinking or cut back on it, whatever the case may be, then he's definitely not going to be primed or in the mental state to do that with you. Him, we're talking about, and he can't even do that. If he doesn't think he has a drinking problem, then whatever. For point number 9, work ethic. It sounds very masculine and manly when I'm saying it like this. You need, as a woman, observe that guy's work ethic. If you notice that his approach to being at work, he's very lazy. He really doesn't want to do work at work, whatever his job is. He's always talking about, oh, I hate going to my job. I never want to do any of the work. I get so sick of being at work. Because he is so lazy at work and he hates doing all of this work at work. He always is trying to cut corners. What's an example of cutting corners? When I'm at work, if I choose to work in the cereal aisle at the grocery store, nobody usually comes in that aisle for a long period of time. So I usually just walk back and forth there to waste time, and I'm on my phone because I know that's the best way for me to avoid having to go and do actual work. So I always hit the cereal aisle first so that I have to do the least amount of work at work. This approach might sound like, oh my God, he's finessing, like, ha, I got a finesse. Or it's actually a very bad thing. Cutting corners is one thing, but let's say he's also cheating the job. An example of cheating the job could be maybe he found some sort of glitch or a way that he could clock in and make his hours seem like he worked more hours than he's been working. And this is information that he's sharing with you so that he can get paid maybe an extra hour or an extra 30 minutes. Or he's figured out a way to finesse it so that he can leave early, but it doesn't actually clock him out until a certain amount of time so that he can get paid what he needs to get paid, right? Cheating the job. These are examples of things that when you hear this relates to his work ethic. And when you get an understanding that his work ethic is like this very lazy, cutting corners, cheating the job, this man is not open to being in a relationship or to falling in love. Now you might be thinking, how do those two things connect? Well, they connect because if a guy is ready for a relationship, truthfully ready for a relationship, he should have the understanding that that relationship is gonna require massaging, is going to require effort, is going to require consistency. That should be the mind frame and state of being that he goes into a relationship understanding he has to be prepared for. The problem with that is if his already existing work ethic is this is the same work ethic he will bring to a relationship. I know all of you guys are looking for signs. All of you guys want him to just tell you exactly how he feels, exactly what he wants, and you don't want anything to be a mystery. But the reality of it is you can get that information. It just comes in a different format. If you want to know what his level of work ethic or consistency will be with you, ask him about his work ethic or consistency on the job. If he's in this mode, the laziness, always cutting corners, always cheating the job, how do you think he's going to do the relationship? The exact same way. And the men who are focused on cutting corners and cheating the job will not be open to love because they don't want to do or sacrifice or do the work that love will require to actually be successful, right? Because being in love, falling in love, and having a loving relationship takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of days where it sucks, takes some days to that require discipline that aren't the most amazing to eventually get on the other side. But if someone has very little to no work ethic, that process is going to be very painful, very hard, and you won't be able to work with that guy. For point number 10, we're going to discuss love, but love specifically as it relates to what that guy thinks love is about and what his desire for a loving romantic relationship will be. What I mean by that is, let's say you go out with a guy and you start asking him, well, what do you think a romantic relationship should consist of? What is your ideal romantic relationship? What are the character traits of it? Where do you guys go? What do you do? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? How do you talk to each other? All of those things. When you're having this conversation with him, you need to be listening back. How does he actually describe love? And what does he want to extract from the experience of being in love? For example, let's say this guy says, oh, I want you or my girlfriend to basically be like a guy friend. I want her to watch football. I want us to play video games and really and truly just only have fun. I'm not saying that any one of these things are bad things to want in a relationship, but listen to the overall sentiment here. When you're soaking in knowledge, soak it in its totality, in the sense that, like, what is he really asking for here? Is his version of love to actually be with a woman? Because his expectation of a woman is really to be more like a guy. Not that there's anything wrong with you taking some interest in some of his interests, but if he's so focused on your relationship resembling his friendship with his guy friends, that guy's not ready for an actual relationship. Because when you're a man and you're looking for a woman, your explanation in the way that love will make you feel, the things it'll do to you, and the way your relationship dynamic will be should not resemble a relationship with a guy friend. Because yes, your girlfriend or your wife should be your best friend, but she's not supposed to be one of your guy friends, and vice versa for you as well. So you have to ask yourself, when you're asking him, how is he actually describing his version of love? And is that in line with what I think love should be or what makes sense to me? Or am I hearing things that really don't sound like someone who's ready for love, sounds more like someone who's ready to just have another guy friend around? Because if he wants you to just resemble one of his guy friends, well, you're not really going to be successful having a long-term serious relationship, because love is not having a guy friend, okay? Love is having a best friend, but your best friend is going to not have the same character traits as you, not have the same physical character traits, not going to process information the same, not going to understand or talk about things the same as you. And that should be, if a man is open to falling in love, should be something that he embraces as a man. I'm a man. There's certain ways I'll go about things. There's certain things I'm good at, certain things I'm not so good at. You're a woman. There will be certain things that you will think and feel, certain things that you'll be amazing at, certain things you're not going to be so good at. But when we come together, that's when we're really like the ultimate team, okay? And that should be, I feel, his expression of love in a way that will actually be congruent to you guys actually having a successful relationship, where he feels like you're actually meant to be different and not the same as him, and your relationship isn't meant to resemble a relationship that in his life that already exists, like one with his mother or one with his brother or one with his guy friends.